Definitely. My name's Dan Darcy. I'm a principal with Oliver Wyman. I'm based out of Los Angeles, and I work in our transportation and services and climate and sustainability practice groups.
And here we are at ITB Berlin, and you've just come off the stage and you've just revealed a really important piece of research that you've been working on for more than a year.
Exactly, yes. A bit of a labor of love. We've been very blessed. We've been working with the World Travel and Tourism Council, and we've been building this report that looks on the upcoming sustainability requirements. And so we talked to many different organizations across the travel and tourism industry, and what we really wanted to hear from them is what challenges were they encountering when they look at these new requirements, where were they progressing, where were they falling behind, and what challenges did they see then going forward. And obviously, what can we do to help? What can Oliver Wyman, what can the industry groups, WTTC, what can we do to help make sure that they're successful? I think what we're learning and what we saw was, while there's a lot of optimism and the companies in the industry really do obviously care about sustainability, it impacts them very uniquely compared to other organizations, I'd say many are underprepared and some of them don't know where to start. 80% of the travel and tourism industry is small and medium-sized enterprises, and a lot of them don't have the resources or the knowledge to be able to take that first step. And that's where we really wanted to create something that's easy to digest, easy to understand, recognizing that regulatory documents are very complicated, that they can read through and they can understand and they can put into practice very quickly and easily.
And what's different from the research that's been undertaken today? What's different about your report?
I think a big piece of it is the actionable piece of this, and the fact that we've talked to so many different groups across the industry. The travel and tourism industry is huge, and it includes everything from airlines and airports to cruise lines to hotels to travel tech companies. And each of these subsectors has their own intricacies and their own challenges that come with it. So even though we've looked at this at the high level and said, here are the questions that you should be asking yourself, we've also dug into those individual industries to understand what should they do specific to their operations, their business models, should they be doing in particular to prepare for the upcoming requirements.
Give us some examples of how you're helping turn that into action.
Definitely. So we looked across 4 different categories. So data, reporting, strategy and organization, and value chain. And what we really advise people is there's some things that they can be doing right away in order to be addressing these. There's certain things, first of all, they should be looking at the readiness roadmap that we've developed, going through, doing their own self-assessment. That will give them an idea of those 4 categories, where should they be focusing their time and attention. For example, with value chain, it might just be as simple as having conversations with their suppliers. If they're not engaged with them yet today, they're probably gonna have challenges if their first conversation is, here's the data that we need from you. So starting to have those conversations, from an organizational perspective, it's really important to be building sustainability into the entire organization and not just having it be specific in a certain group where it's kind of put off to the side, dealing with its own initiatives. They need to certainly be coordinating with finance. As this starts to go more into financial, to the same level as financial reporting, the finance teams will need to be involved. There may be an audit involved with that. Certainly, as you think about operations, they have to be involved because they're the ones that are actually implementing the sustainability initiatives. And this goes all the way up to the C-suite level. Investors, we heard from investors, which is another aspect of this report that's a bit different. We heard from investors that they are very interested. They want this transparency, and they want comparability across companies from a sustainability perspective. So I think when C-suite folks hear that, their ears are going to perk up. And they're going to understand, look, we're being asked for this information, and we're going to make it easier for investors and for other stakeholders to actually be able to understand and make their investing decisions. The one other area that I'd say, I mentioned it earlier, which is Gen Z is very interested in this topic. And whether it's looking at them from a consumer perspective and recognizing that they are changing their consumer behaviors based on perceived sustainability, as well as employees. In the travel and tourism industry, there is a labor shortage. We have huge labor challenges, and that the young people are a huge part of the future of the labor force of this industry. It's going to double, I believe it's in the next 7 years, the percentage of Gen Z as a part of the industry is going to double. I believe it's from 15% to around 30%. So it's going to be a huge part of the industry, and these workers are really interested in working for employees that agree with their values and their positions on a lot of important issues, one of which is sustainability.
That's fascinating. So you've launched the report.
Yes.
What next?
Great question. Well, we just heard the SEC is voting on their requirements tomorrow. So I was saying I think we might have to add an addendum to it because we based the report off the latest version, the latest draft of the SEC. We did update it slightly when we heard what was maybe coming. There was a Reuters report that said what attributes may or may not be in the final requirements, and they're voting on it tomorrow. So we're going to get kind of in real time. We're going to be hearing more and understanding more about what's going to be expected. But I think the important message is, whatever the SEC decides tomorrow, a lot of companies are going to be affected by the requirements that have already been finalized and that are already in effect. And what that goes to show is companies should be thinking about this. Even if you're a small company in a country that doesn't have standards in place yet or is under development, your customers may be asking you for that data. And so you need to start having those conversations and realize this might not be as far down the road as expected. So certainly that's an area, SEC is an area that we'd like to focus on. And there's some other areas when you think about the employee value proposition that I mentioned, there are certain areas that we really want to dig into further where we couldn't necessarily, to make sure it was still readable, we couldn't get everything in that we wanted to. So certainly other areas that we'd love to dive into more deeply.
Well, I'm looking forward to that coming around the corner. So someone's watching this interview, how do they take their first step?
The first step would be to reflect and look internally at your organization. And I think you really have to look at it with an open and with an open mindset of just thinking about where are we struggling today, and don't make assumptions about what tomorrow is going to look like. But think about if they are in a situation where they need to start reporting soon, are they ready? I think what we heard pretty much across the board was that companies are not ready. So I would certainly recommend look at the report, look at the assessment, and use that as a first step, as a guide to say, here are the areas where we're stronger. We can probably put those aside for now. Here are the areas where we're behind, and we really need to focus our attention to make sure that we're prepared in the years ahead.
And on that note, I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dustin. Really appreciate it.